Your soulmate saying, "I want to talk to you right now. It's very urgent, open this now. My beloved child." Your soulmate is trying to reach you emotionally right now, and the urgency behind what they want to say is stronger than you realize. Something happened recently that forced them to confront a truth they had been avoiding for far too long. They picked up their phone more than once, opened your conversation, typed several words, then erased everything before you could ever see it. But this time feels different. There is something they can no longer keep buried. It involves you, a decision they almost made, and a conversation that suddenly changed the way they see your connection. The strangest part? Someone mentioned your name at exactly the wrong moment, and your soulmate's reaction revealed more than they intended. Their silence afterward wasn't because they had nothing to say. It was because they realized the next words they spoke could change everything between you. So what exactly happened in that conversation, and why did it make them suddenly desperate to talk to you? Your soulmate had believed they could keep their emotions under control. They told themselves they needed more time. They tried acting as though the distance between you wasn't affecting them. But then someone close to them asked one simple question: if this person disappeared from your life tomorrow, would you really be okay? Your soulmate couldn't answer. They went completely quiet, because the answer arrived inside them before they could hide from it. No. They wouldn't be okay. And that realization frightened them. Don't skip, because what happened next explains why this message feels so urgent. Instead of changing the subject, your soulmate finally admitted something they had never said clearly before: there was something they should have told you much sooner. Something about their feelings had changed, and they were afraid they had waited so long that you might already believe they didn't care. But that wasn't the only confession waiting beneath the surface. Later, when your soulmate was finally alone, they looked at your name again. This time, they didn't immediately close the screen. Their finger hovered there as memories rushed back. Unfinished conversations, moments when they almost told you the truth, and one particular moment when they misunderstood something you did. That misunderstanding quietly influenced several decisions afterward. Now they have discovered they may have been wrong about you all along. And suddenly, the distance between you looks completely different to them. Stay till the end, because the real urgency isn't simply that they miss you. Your soulmate wants to tell you what they discovered, why they pulled away when part of them wanted to come closer, and what they're considering doing next. But before they can say any of that, there is one question they desperately need answered, and they are terrified your answer may have changed while they were silent. Do you still feel what they feel? That question has been following your soulmate everywhere, because they no longer know what your silence means. At first, they convinced themselves you were simply giving them space. Then another possibility entered their mind: what if you finally stopped waiting? What if their hesitation made you believe the connection meant less to them than it actually did? That thought changed something. They started replaying the exact moment when everything became complicated, searching for the detail they might have misunderstood. And then they remembered something you said. Something small enough to overlook at the time, but powerful enough to mean something completely different now. Suddenly, your soulmate realized you may not have been pushing them away at all. You may have been protecting yourself while waiting for them to show you where they truly stood. And now they know they left you with questions they should have answered themselves. But there is another reason they want to talk immediately. During that recent conversation, someone close to your soulmate revealed that you had been mentioned before, more than once. Your soulmate wasn't expecting that. They asked what had been said, and the answer stopped them cold. Apparently, someone had noticed how differently your soulmate behaves whenever your name enters a conversation. Their voice changes. Their attention sharpens. Even when they pretend not to care, everyone around them can see the reaction they keep trying to hide. Your soulmate laughed it off at first, but inside, something cracked open. Because if other people could see it so clearly, why were they still pretending you didn't matter that much? Don't skip. This is where the urgency becomes deeper, because your soulmate finally admitted that their biggest obstacle wasn't another person. It was fear. And that fear has been costing them more than they expected. They were afraid of saying too much, afraid of hearing the wrong answer, afraid that opening their heart would leave them completely exposed. But now another fear has become stronger, the fear of losing the chance to tell you anything at all. That's why they keep returning to your conversation. That's why the message they want to send keeps getting longer. They don't want another vague exchange. They want one real conversation where nothing important is hidden. Yet just before they decided to reach out, something unexpected happened. A message appeared on their phone from someone who knew more about this situation than your soulmate realized. And after reading only the first few lines, your soulmate understood that the misunderstanding between you may never have started the way they thought it did, because someone else had known the truth from the beginning. Your soulmate read that message twice, then a third time, because one sentence completely changed what they believed about the distance between you. The person writing to them wasn't trying to interfere. They were finally correcting something that had been left misunderstood for too long. They explained that during a crucial moment, your words had been repeated without the emotion and context behind them. What sounded like rejection wasn't rejection at all. You had been uncertain, hurt, and waiting for clarity. But your soulmate heard only the simplified version, and from that moment forward, they began protecting themselves from a heartbreak that hadn't actually happened. Imagine realizing that months of hesitation may have grown from one incomplete conversation. Their stomach dropped. Suddenly, memories that once seemed confusing started making sense. But one detail in that message disturbed them even more. Apparently, you had tried to make your true feelings clear afterward. That revelation sent your soulmate searching backward through everything. Old conversations. Missed opportunities. Small moments they had dismissed because fear was already telling them what to believe. And there it was, a pattern they hadn't recognized before. You weren't disappearing. You were leaving little doors open, waiting to see whether they would finally walk through one. Each time, your soulmate hesitated. Not because they didn't care, but because they believed approaching you would only make things worse. Now they can see how differently those moments might have unfolded. Stay till the end, because this is where regret turns into a decision. Your soulmate doesn't want to spend another night wondering what might have happened if they had simply asked you the truth instead of assuming it. They started typing again, and this time the message wasn't cautious. It began with words they had been terrified to say, "I think I misunderstood everything." But they still haven't told you the most important part. Because while reading through those old conversations, your soulmate found something that made them stop completely. It was a message from you they had seen before, yet somehow never understood. The words were simple, but now, with everything they had just discovered, the meaning was impossible to ignore. You had practically given them the answer they were afraid to ask for. And suddenly, their urgency became something else entirely. They weren't only trying to repair a misunderstanding anymore. They were wondering whether there was still time to act on what had been between you all along. Their finger hovered over the send button as one final fear surfaced. What if they finally tell you everything, only to discover they waited one day too long? Then another notification appeared. And the name on the screen made them freeze. The name on that notification belonged to someone your soulmate never expected to hear from tonight. It was the same person who had been present around the time the original misunderstanding began. For several seconds, your soulmate simply stared at the screen. Then they opened the message, and the first line made their heart pound. There's something else you need to know about what happened. Suddenly, this wasn't only about misunderstood words anymore. The person explained that after everything became complicated, you had apparently asked a question about your soulmate, one that never reached them. You wanted to know whether they genuinely cared or whether you had imagined the connection. Your soulmate felt the weight of that question immediately. Because while you were wondering if they cared, they were somewhere else wondering exactly the same thing about you. Two people carrying the same fear, both waiting for the other to break the silence. Then came the detail your soulmate wasn't prepared for. They learned that your question had actually been answered, but the answer never made its way back to you. Your soulmate had admitted, indirectly but unmistakably, that you mattered deeply to them. They had simply been too afraid to tell you face to face. Now they understood how badly everything had crossed in the middle. You may have walked away believing their silence was your answer, while they believed your distance was yours. Don't skip, because this realization pushed your soulmate past the point of hesitation. They opened your conversation again and stopped deleting what they wrote. Line by line, the truth appeared on the screen, the fear, the misunderstanding, the regret, and finally the admission they had avoided for so long. But before sending it, they decided there was something even more important than explaining the past. They needed to tell you what they wanted now. And that's when the message changed completely. Your soulmate deleted the careful opening and replaced it with something far more vulnerable. Can we talk right now? Please. I don't want to hide behind another message. They wanted you to hear their voice. They wanted you to know when they hesitated, when their voice shook, and when they finally said the words they couldn't type. Because what they are considering now isn't a casual conversation or another temporary attempt to reconnect. Something huge is waiting for you. Your soulmate has made a private decision about this connection, and once they tell you, there may be no returning to the comfortable silence that existed before. But just as they prepared to reach out, they remembered one promise they had quietly made to themselves months ago, a promise involving you that they never intended anyone else to discover. And tonight, they are finally ready to reveal exactly what that promise was. That promise was painfully simple. If your soulmate ever became certain that their feelings for you were real, they would stop running from them. For months, they kept finding excuses to delay that moment. They told themselves they needed another sign, another conversation, another reason to believe you wouldn't reject them. But tonight, After discovering how much of the distance between you came from misunderstanding rather than absence of feeling, the excuses stopped working. They remembered making that promise during one of the loneliest nights of this connection, when they had almost contacted you but backed away at the last second. Back then, they whispered to themselves that someday, if the truth became impossible to deny, they would choose courage over silence. Now that day appears to have arrived. But there is still one thing they need to know before they can completely follow through. Your soulmate isn't expecting you to forget everything that happened. In fact, that is exactly what makes this conversation frightening for them. They know you may have questions. You may want to know why they waited, why they didn't ask you directly, and why fear was allowed to make decisions that their heart never wanted. They have been rehearsing those answers in their mind, and none of them sound perfect. Because the truth isn't perfect. They were scared. They misunderstood you. And instead of risking vulnerability, they chose distance because distance felt safer. But now they understand something they couldn't see before: silence didn't protect either of you. It only created more silence. And when your soulmate imagined that continuing for another week, another month, perhaps even longer, something inside them finally said, enough. They would rather hear an uncomfortable truth from you than spend another day living inside assumptions. So now your soulmate is preparing to ask you something much bigger than, do you still care? They want to know whether the two of you can finally have the conversation you should have had from the beginning. Without guessing, without other people's interpretations, and without hiding what you actually feel. But before they reach that question, there is one confession they intend to make first. Stay till the end, because this is the part they have never admitted to anyone clearly. During the time you believed they were moving on, your soulmate was quietly imagining what would happen if you came back into their life completely. They pictured the conversation. They pictured seeing you again. They even decided what they would say if they ever received one more genuine chance. And tonight, those exact words are sitting unfinished on their screen, but the final sentence reveals what they truly want from you now. The final sentence on your soulmate's screen says something they have rewritten again and again: I don't want another almost with you. Those words frighten them because they reveal exactly where their heart stands. They are tired of almost speaking, almost reaching out, almost discovering what this connection could become. And tonight, they finally understand that waiting for the perfect moment may have been the very thing keeping that moment from ever arriving. Their message isn't asking you to erase the past or pretend nothing happened. They want something far more difficult, one completely honest conversation. No assumptions. No disappearing behind silence. No allowing someone else to explain what either of you feels. But as your soulmate reads those words back, another realization hits them: if they contact you now, they have to be prepared for whatever you say. That possibility makes their hand tremble over the phone. What if you still care, but you're afraid to trust them? What if you need answers before you can open that door again? Your soulmate knows they cannot rush you. They also know an apology means very little unless something changes afterward. So they make another decision. If you agree to talk, they won't begin by defending themselves. They will listen first. They want to hear what their silence felt like from your side, what you believed when they pulled away, and whether there were moments when you nearly gave up. Don't skip, because this is where their urgency becomes more than emotion. Your soulmate has realized that getting you back into a conversation isn't the goal. Understanding what happened between you is. And they are prepared to hear something that may hurt if it finally gives both of you the truth. But just before they send the message, your soulmate notices something they somehow overlooked earlier. Beneath that old conversation they had been rereading is a timestamp attached to one particular message from you. Suddenly, they remember exactly where they were when it arrived, and what happened immediately afterward. That memory changes their expression completely. Because they now realize their misunderstanding may not have been accidental in the way they assumed. Someone spoke to them shortly after your message arrived, and what that person said influenced everything your soulmate did next. Now they are questioning why that person seemed so certain about what you supposedly meant. Something huge is waiting for you, because your soulmate is beginning to connect details they never connected before. And before they contact you, they want one answer. Why did someone else seem so determined to convince them that you had already walked away? That question refuses to leave your soulmate's mind. They go back through the timeline carefully, remembering exactly what was said after your message arrived. At the time, the person sounded convincing. They told your soulmate not to read too much into your words, that you were probably being polite, that reaching out again might only create embarrassment. Your soulmate believed them because those warnings matched the fear already growing inside them. But now, with everything they have discovered tonight, those comments feel strangely different. Why was someone else interpreting your feelings with such confidence? Why didn't your soulmate simply ask you? The realization stings because they understand they handed someone else influence over a connection that belonged to the two of you. And this time, they refuse to make that mistake again. Your soulmate isn't interested in creating drama or blaming anyone. What matters now is separating assumptions from facts. So they look at your original words without anyone else's interpretation attached to them, and something becomes obvious. Your message wasn't cold. It wasn't final. There was hesitation in it, yes, but there was also an opening. A chance to continue the conversation. Your soulmate simply couldn't see it because fear had already convinced them to expect rejection. Stay with this, because that discovery changes what they plan to say to you. Instead of arriving with accusations or explanations, they want to ask one direct question: what did you actually mean that day? For the first time, they are willing to let your answer replace every story they created in their own mind. But there's another truth they need to confess before asking you anything. They need to admit that even after believing you had walked away, they never completely let go. Certain places still reminded them of you. Certain conversations made them wonder what you would have said. More than once, they almost reached out, only to convince themselves that respecting your supposed decision meant staying silent. Now they realize they may have been respecting a decision you never made. And that thought is almost unbearable. Your soulmate looks again at the urgent message waiting on their screen. This time, they don't erase it. They add one final line: "There's something I should have asked you a long time ago, and I need to hear the answer from you, not from anyone else." Their finger moves toward send. But before touching it, they receive one last piece of information about that old misunderstanding, and it reveals exactly what you had been waiting for them to do. The final piece of information is almost painfully simple: you had been waiting for your soulmate to make the next move. Not some dramatic gesture. Not a perfect speech. Just one clear sign that they were willing to choose honesty instead of leaving you trapped inside uncertainty. Your soulmate sits completely still as that truth settles in. Al.